Field Trips features real field stories told by real ASCE members.
I'm Peggy Hagerty Duffy, President of Hagerty Engineering and the Executive Director of the International Association of Foundation Drilling. Like many people, I spent a good deal of time working on foundations for cell towers for a number of years. Had a project site in central Kentucky, which is, as most people know, is pretty heavily karst. And we did borings. This was a 3-legged self-supporting tower. We did the borings at the locations that were designated by the company and said, here is where the cell tower legs are going to be based on all the things that are necessary for where the tower has to be situated. We were very careful during drilling because this tower was going to be located just outside the fence for a state park. We were told all of these restrictions, et cetera, in advance because we're going to be just outside the fence of this state park. We drilled it. We gave foundation recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. We go to construction and the contractor is out there to put in drilled shafts. And the first day I showed up and noticed this isn't where we put in our borings. Now, it's the same site and they are offset what the average person might say, oh, that's just a little bit. But they were definitely moved. And not only were they slightly rotated, but they had been moved closer to the fence of the state park. And the contractor said, it's fine though, because we're still outside the fence of the state park. And I said, we're very close, but you understand these conditions, we might end up with different conditions than what we had in the borings. And he said, well, we'll deal with that when it happens. So these shafts were maybe 40 feet deep. They weren't super deep. And we were supposed to be doing downhole inspection. And the hole man on the first hole went down to clean out the drilled shaft. And as he got down there, he started yelling. And he started yelling for me. And he started yelling, Peggy, you have to come down here. I said, well, that's the plan. You need to finish cleaning so I can come down there and inspect. He goes, no. There are people in the hole. Well, I immediately panicked and I said, obviously we've been monitoring gas, but we must have something in the hole. He's delirious. Get him out of there. Get him out of there. And so we got him out of the hole and he was kind of grabbing me and saying there are people in the hole. And we checked the gas again. Everything was fine. And I happened to look down in the hole and I saw some movement, which was a little odd. And I said, fine, let's go. Put me on the bosun's chair. Let's get in the hole. So I got on the bosun's chair. I went down. I get to the bottom of the hole and found out that apparently over the years, the fence for the state park had moved as things happen over 50 or 60 years. And we had drilled into a slot in the rock at the bottom. And that slot daylighted down into the feature, the attraction at the state park, which was a cave. And in fact, I got to the bottom of that shaft and was looking at the faces of 2 tourists who were looking up at me, just as baffled as I was. So we, of course, panicked for about 5 minutes and then said, okay, we're going to have to get a plan. We don't have the option of filling up this state park attraction with concrete. So we're going to have to figure out what we're going to need to do. This was close to the end of the day. And so fortunately, I had worked with other crews in the past in karst terrain who taught me some tricks, some field tricks about what to do when you end up with large void spaces around your drilled shaft. And so I sent the crew off to get some bags of dried cement that we would later spray down with water down in that slot in the rock and layer to make a barrier so we could still pour our concrete and not fill the entire state park attraction with concrete as we were doing it. So there were actually people in the hole. We did have an issue and the gentleman was correct. One of the important things to this is in karst terrain, it does make a big difference. If you are in karst or anything like that with an irregular upper rock surface or with any other type of unusual or irregular subsurface, we're just going to move this a little bit may sound great to everybody else, but it may have a big effect on the project. If you are in, glacial till where everything looks the same for 30 miles, maybe not such a big deal. But it's always important to make sure that you know and you're prepared when you're going into an environment like this where things could change. Now, the postscript in this is I had to be on another site the next day, so I asked a geologist from our office to go back and do the final inspection. Unfortunately for him, overnight, because we had left that slot open overnight, they weren't going to put in the dry cement in that slot until in the next morning. The shaft had filled with several hundred cave crickets from the cave in the state park attraction. If you've never seen a cave cricket and you don't have them where you are, they're about this big and they look like a giant spider. They tend to be vibration and heat seeking. So as he was lowered down into the shaft and stepped off the bosun's chair, about 200 cave crickets as one jumped onto his body. So anyway, I owed him for a couple of years after that. Moral of the story, when you have irregular stratigraphy, when you have irregular geology, it's a different animal than when things stay consistent.
Field Trips is a production of ASCE and the Geo-Institute.